This one's gonna be fun. What's up? How y'all doing? Jared, what the hell is this? Okay, what? Okay, it's obvious what this is, right? It's I all right, I would call this a tactical syringe. When I first got this thing, this is a Microtech Tac-P, okay? Tac-P. You can see it in there. When I first got this thing, right, I was calling it a tactical syringe, which isn't necessarily accurate, because if you really give this thing some thought, right? You really think about what it is. What is it? Okay, what is it going to do, right? What is it going to do when you actually use this thing? If you stick this into somebody or something, right, what is it going to do? It's going to work like a syringe. That's actually true. You can see the way that this is shaped here. The overall design of this thing, that's going to stretch material around it. That's not going to give a cut. That's not going to make a circular cut or a round cut. What that's going to do is make a singular line, right? And then it's going to force that line open around this actual shaft, okay? And so these holes in here are going to aid in a couple things. They're going to do a couple things, right? Little holes that have been milled all the way along this thing, and you can actually take the butt end out as well. What that's going to do is it's going to cut down air force, because one moment you get to right here, there's going to be all this air trapped inside of this tube, and that's going to actually give you resistance in forcing it in there, because as you do, you're compressing all of the air inside of this tube. And so that gives you relief all the way up until like that point, right? When you're going to be able to compress the rest of that amount of air with the amount of force you're stabbing into something with this thing, right? So that's not necessarily a problem. And then if you stick this thing in this far, right? If that's sitting that far into something, those are legitimately bloodlets, right? You think about like a blood groove, right? That's not a blood groove. That's a fuller running down the center of the spine of this knife, but it's called a blood groove because it lets the blood flow out, right? Which is just some, like urban legend bullshit. It's not actually real. That is real. That's not a joke. That is going to work like a freaking sieve. It's going to work like a tap, like you're tapping a freaking tree, coming, like trying to get maple syrup or whatever. Like that's literally what that's going to work for, right? So this is a bleeding stick. That's what this is. If you stick this into something and then leave it there, it's just going to exsanguinate it almost immediately, right? And if you hit it in the right spot, and then at the same time, you can just stab something, it's going to go in and out of material extremely easy. So this is a very pokey, very stabby little stick. I mean, it is. And it's deadly. It's almost disgustingly deadly. The way, just how brutal, right? This is one of the most brutal objects. I'll take that thing off in a minute. This is one of the most brutal objects that I actually own, with all of the knives and swords and all of the crap, right, that I have. I like cutlery. I like weaponry. I like this kind of stuff. And out of everything that I own, this is probably one of the most brutal things that I own, which is just an impressive statement, seeing as how it's a freaking little metal tube. It's legitimately just a metal tube with the end of it cut off at an angle, right? This is an impressive thing. However, right, with all of that, I like this thing. I can't say I don't love this thing, but I like this thing. It just makes me happy in how ridiculous it honestly is. I saw this thing in the store and was like, oh yeah, that's made by Microtech? I was going to buy it anyway, but then I saw it was a Microtech. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah, no. I need that thing. Like, I have to own that thing. I'm definitely glad I did. Where I got it, Weeby Knives. You want to buy a knife from a knife person, go to Weeby Knives, Pier 39 in San Francisco. Hit them up on Instagram. But this thing, right, okay, why does it exist, right? With all of that, with as much just giggle factor as this thing gives me, right, why does it exist? What is it for? Because an exsanguination tube is not a necessary object to exist on any market, realistically. I mean, that's not something that you need. You know what I'm saying? Why does this thing exist? Why did they make it? You know, you have multiple options for everything that this thing can do. As a striking implement, you have better options as actual striking implements. As force impact multipliers, you have better options. As far as penetrating equipment, fixed blade single piece penetrating equipment, you have much better options out there. It's extremely light, and maybe if you're not allowed to carry a knife, if you're in an area that prohibits you from carrying a knife, but you can still carry a dedicated stabbing implement and you can still carry a kubaton with you, this thing may have some legal implications that, somebody may be able to carry it in an area where they wouldn't necessarily be able to carry a knife, but at the same time, that's a very small market. That's going to be an extremely small market, and why make it? It's not going to do nearly as good of a job at penetrating as something like, something that's a traditionally designed implement for stabbing, right? It's not going to go through material nearly as easy. It's just not. You can't. This will stab into stuff. There's not a whole lot of material up there. You can see how narrow that gets. That is sharp as hell. If you hit a lot of pressure sideways, this will slice something, this will cut something, not very deep, but it will cut something. This will stab through material, but it's not going to stab through material. It's not going to penetrate it through any material as nearly as well as something that's traditionally designed to do that task, right? And so, realistically, I like this thing. I really do. But what is it for? Why does it exist? I don't understand the actual thought process in designing and manufacturing this item. I don't get it. I don't. I bought it, and I'm glad that I bought it. I've got, what is this? Number 939. Yeah, number 939, right? It's got a production date. It's a Microtech. It's going to go in my Microtech collection. I have carried it in my boot for a little while, But why? Why? I keep coming back to the fact of what the hell is it? Why? I don't understand. It seems like something that's just such a specific item that I just don't get why a company like Microtech could manufacture the damn thing. The sheath here is dope. I really like this. This isn't carbon fiber. It's just kind of faux carbon fiber. It's Kydex. You can see it is like a Kydex, and then they've just kind of molded, like heat molded this faux carbon fiber texture pattern on the back of it. This clip here works excellent. It really does. It's got a lot of tension. That's a lot of force there. I don't know if you're going to be able to come across. You can see how much it's indenting my thumb there. Give you an idea of the amount of pressure that I'm actually using to force that thing down. It's not easy. There's a lot of tension in this thing. It is extremely secure, and especially because, it's a little hook, right? You see that? It's a little hook going up in that way. So when you clamp this thing down, any material that's caught up in there, it's secure, because you've got an actual forced hook being forced into that material, preventing it from actually becoming dislodged. This thing is secure. It's not going to go anywhere. I really like that it is adjustable. You can kind of move it down. The sheath is interesting in the fact that it's open. You can see that all the way through it. It's got these little barrel spacers that actually separate the sheath, holding it open. And so that's nice material, debris, whatever, whatever can come flowing in and out of there. It does work really well in my boot. Clipping it to the leather of my boot really does hold it secure, doesn't go anywhere. I tightened that thing down a little bit, had to get that thing off with the tool. You see how this is done. Just a little screw-on cap. That's all it is. Literally all this thing is a 410 stainless steel tube with the end cut off of it. That's literally all it is. And then they say, right, the reason that this end comes off here is so you can clean it, so you can clean out the inside of it. Think about how freaking gruesome that little factoid is, right? But one thing this does, it really does give me an idea, just survival, kind of like a shit hits the fan scenario, right? Not this thing specifically, but if you take a rod, you take a steel rod, stick it up inside of a piece of PVC pipe, right? Plastic PVC pipe, and then you cut that PVC pipe, whatever it is, not even PVC, you get a steel pipe, lead pipe, whatever it is, just a pipe, literally a pipe, and you cut it down at this angle here. That's all you need to make a extremely brutal spear. That's all you need. You know, I mean, obviously sharpening a stick is an obvious idea, but this gives me ideas for like pole arms and stuff like that. I mean, just extremely easily made pole arms. That's all you got to do. Cut it at a freaking angle. And look at how narrow that is. Look at how little material is actually up there, which is a positive and a negative, because it's a positive in the fact that it's going to go through the material better, but at the same time, if this thing hits anything hard, you hit anything metal, it hits basically anything, because this is 410 stainless. It's not the hardest steel in the world. It hits anything, especially at an angle. Like if you hit something really hard at an angle, this kind of an angle, it comes digging in. That's going to bend, shatter that tip. It's just going to rip that tip straight off. There's not enough material up there to be very strong. That's weak, right? That's not a very strong piece of material right up there at that tip, which again is a positive and it's a negative. So I don't know. I freaking love this thing. I really do. I like it. But I mean, these are all iterations of cutlery, different forms of cutlery from Microtech that do a better job than this. Hit something, stab something. Well, I don't get it. I don't get it. But I freaking love it. That's it. Microtech Tac-P. Y'all have a good one.